Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy was an action platformer in 2003 that was published by THQ and developed by the now shut down development studio Eurocom. Back then, the title was well received critically, but was an unfortunate sales flop. Over 15 years later, and THQ Nordic is now looking to give the title a second chance by remastering it exclusively for the Nintendo Switch. So, how does it fare after all this time? Let's find out. The game has you begin as Sphinx, a warrior tagging along with Horus, trying to acquire the Blade of Osiris in the castle of Uruk. They are tasked this by their master, but things go wrong fairly quickly as they approach grabbing the sword. With Sphinx being more fortunate to grab the sword, he then finds himself before a statue with a portal. Upon walking through the portal, the game then shifts to Prince Tut, our other protagonist. It's Tut's birthday, and his brother Akhenaten is planning a not-so-nice birthday bash for him. His present? Well, to perform a dark ritual on his brother. Sphinx is able to interrupt this ritual, but Tut has already been mummified. We then learn that Akhenaten is actually the dark god Set in disguise and mentions his actual plans. It is at this point that gameplay goes back and forth between the two characters as they must work together to stop Set from his diabolical scheme. Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy plays very much like an older 3D Zelda title, with buttons mapped for items to use and context-sensitive button prompts. Throughout the game's 8 to 12 hour campaign, you'll play as both characters providing different mechanics. Sphinx is your main character that wields the Blade of Osiris, and the core game revolves more around him and his abilities that he garners. You will explore numerous locales, gaining new abilities to help you advance through the areas. You will also interact with several characters and assist in their issues and take on their quests. There are even minigames to help emphasize the variety that platformers had in this era. Combat is handled simply by pressing the attack button, and Sphinx pulls off 3-hit combos. You can mix in a somersault slam attack later on in the game to deal heavier damage on enemies, and can also capture certain enemies mid-combat with capture beetles. Capturing enemies will become essential to solving certain puzzles, and can help by summoning them in battle. Playing as Tut in his mummified form is more puzzle-oriented. He is undead, therefore you cannot die playing as him. Instead, his gameplay revolves more around puzzle solving by being tortured. Set him ablaze, electrify him, flatten him, cut him into pieces. These are all comical elements that assist greatly in the journey at hand. You will retrieve urns as Sphinx that contains the life energy of Tut. Giving these urns to Basket, he will teleport to Tut and bring him back to life in his mummified form temporarily. Basket acts essentially as a bridge between both characters, providing essential items for use to both Sphinx and Tut in their adventure. Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy did release back in November of 2003, so many of the design conventions do stand out a bit, for better or worse. The first issue is that the save locations are a bit few and far in between at times. This certainly was more of an issue at the beginning of the game more than anything else. However, it is worth noting that when you do die and the continue screen pops up, it really means load your game from the last save point. It's old school, but the lack of a checkpoint system is a bit of a shame, especially when remastering this game. Second, the combat is okay, but the lack of a lock-on feature does hurt. I found myself just flailing the sword at times because I just couldn't properly lock onto an enemy, nor could I control the camera very well. Speaking of which, the camera definitely feels like that of a 2003 game. While it works most of the time, moving it feels clunky, especially with the Y-axis camera movement being very sluggish to control. On the flip side, being a game made during a superb era in gaming, it truly feels like a fresh take on platformers. The setting, characters, and ideas implemented in this game are excellent, and in all honesty, Sphinx is some of the most fun you can have with a platformer on the Switch. The old school 3D Zelda style gameplay really was a breath of fresh air in today's current gaming trends. Visually, Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy is a vibrant, sharp-looking game. It was already a strong graphical title back in 2003, and thanks to its superb art style, it holds up extremely well 15 years later. Granted, they've bumped up the resolution to 1080p versus its highest resolution at 480p back then, and they've sharpened the textures, but its core visuals are still very appealing. Environments are nicely detailed, and each area is brimming with color that you want to explore every bit of it. It has the look and feel of a platformer from the 6th generation of gaming consoles, and it looks reminiscent of even games like Jak and Daxter. The game does run at 60 frames locked, which the original did as well, but there are a few graphical features you can tweak here that's different. It's a nice feature to have, but I'd say that even with all the effects turned on at the highest settings, the game ran silky smooth, so I don't see any reason why you'd want to lower it. Audio-wise, the soundtrack in the game does an excellent job gripping you into the experience. The Egyptian-influenced score adds to the immersion, and the constant use of music is done so superbly. Even combat influences the music, playing cues with each successful attack. It's a great touch for sure. Sound effects are also very well done and help wrap this audio package up nicely. The only downside really is the lack of voice acting. Cutscenes show the characters' mouths moving, but no words are actually spoken, just leaving you to read subtitles. Overall, Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy may be a 15-year-old game, but after all these years, it's still a blast to play. While I missed out on this back during the GameCube, PS2, and Xbox era, I'm glad to see that THQ Nordic brought this back. It does have some design decisions that do show its age, and may frustrate some players, but there's no denying that what's here is immensely enjoyable. I had a hard time putting this game down. For the $30 price point, Sphinx is a highly recommended title for any 3D platformer fans out there. That's why I'm giving Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy an 8.0 out of 10.
Hey!